Hey writing class, welcome back to another lesson. I just wanted to let you guys know how an awesome job you're doing writing your paragraphs, editing your sentences, adding in your punctuation, your capitals, so keep up the great work. For today's class, we're going to be looking at lesson 29 and we're going to be looking at parts A, B, C, and D. So let's get started. So we're going to start at part A. These are the instructions. It tells us that we need to remember the rules about groups. If the sentence names two groups, you can't use the word they or them in the next sentence because it'll be confusing. So what we have to do for part A is fix the sentences so that they are clear. So I'll read what it says for the first few examples. So number 1 tells us Antonio bought 2 pencils and 4 pens. And then in the next sentence, it gives us 2 options. He gave either the pencils or them to his friend. If we look at the first sentence, it names 2 pencils and 4 pens. That's 2 groups. That tells us that we can't use the word them or else it'll be unclear, right? So it has to be he gave the pencils to his friend. If we look at number 2, it says Kenyon found 3 bottles on the beach. Only thing that they name in that sentence is 3 bottles, right? So that way, in the next sentence, we can write he put them in the garbage can because them is only referring to the 3 bottles. And we'll do one more. Number 3 says, we saw lions and tigers at the zoo. And then we have to decide whether the next sentence will start with the tigers or they had stripes on their bodies. Right? We have to remember the rule that said that if we have 2 groups, then we can't start the next sentence with they or them. Right? So in this sentence, it names the lions and the tigers. So if I said the word they for the next sentence, it'll be confusing as to who I'm referring to. So sentence number 3 has to start with the tigers. So now I want you guys to look at sentence 4 and 5. And once again, read through the first sentence. And is it naming one group or is it naming more than one group? And then you have to decide whether you'll use they or you'll use the other term. So you guys can pause the video now and then I'll meet you in part B. So welcome back, guys, to part B. I'll read the instructions in the book. In part B, it tells us that the writer forgot to punctuate sentences that tell the exact words somebody said. So our job is to read the passage and fix up the sentences that tell the exact words somebody said. So I have written here the first few sentences from your book, and I'm going to go through them with you, and we'll talk about where we need to add our question marks, where we need to add our quotation marks, and where we need to add our periods or our commas. So sentence number 1 says, Kevin loved to tell jokes, right? We don't have any exact words in this sentence, so we're going to leave the first sentence alone. Then it tells us, one day he walked up to his brother and said, can I ask you a question? Right, so in this sentence, we're going to have to add, we have some exact words that somebody said, so we're going to have to add in our quotation marks. And then depending on if it's a question or a statement, a comma or a question mark. Right, one day he walked up to his brother and said. So right after the word said, I need to have my comma. The exact words he said are, can I ask you a question? So around those words, I'm going to add my quotation marks. Now we have to decide, is it a question or a statement? Right? We know that it is going to be a question. So instead, I'm going to have to add my question mark. We're almost done, except the last thing I need to change is the exact words that somebody said need to begin with a capital letter. So I'm going to change this lowercase c into an uppercase C. So now the sentence should say, one day he walked up to his brother and said, comma, quotation mark, capital C, can I ask you a question? Question mark, closing quotation mark. Then we're going to look at the next sentence. The next sentence says, "You sure can," his brother said. Right? So we need to find out the exact words that were said. Right? You sure can are the exact words, and they come at the beginning of the sentence. So I'm going to put my quotation marks, "you sure can," right around those words. Right? We know this is not a question because he said it, so then I can add my period. I also have to add my comma. The comma will come right before my ending quotation mark. Right? If this was a question instead of that comma, I would just put my question mark. So now the sentence says, quotation mark, "you sure can," question mark, quotation mark, "his brother said," period. And then the last sentence we're going to look at says, "Why did the chicken cross the road?" Kevin asked. Right? So once again, we're going to look at the exact words that Kevin asked. Right? Why did the chicken cross the road? So around those words, I'm going to put in my quotation marks. At the end, it tells us that Kevin asked this as a question, so I'm going to have a period. And then "why did the chicken cross the road?" is a question. It's not a statement. So right before my ending quotation mark, I need to add my question mark. So now I have quotation mark, "Why did the chicken cross the road?" question mark, closing quotation mark, "Kevin asked," period. So I want you guys to finish off the rest of the passage and then add in your quotation marks, your periods, and then your question mark if it's a question, and a period if it's a statement. And a comma if it's a statement. So you guys can pause the video now, and then we can look at part C. So welcome back to part C. Part C, the title of this section is called "Starting a New Paragraph When a New Person Talks." So I'll read what it says in the book. The same passage is written twice. The first passage shows the correct way. The second passage is wrong. The writer forgot a rule about starting new paragraphs. So here's the rule. You can have one person talk in a paragraph. When another person talks, you must start a new paragraph. So I'll read the first paragraph. Mr. Smith stopped at a restaurant to get a cup of coffee. He walked up to the counter and said, "I'll have a cup of that delicious coffee." Right, so in that paragraph, Mr. Smith is talking. I'll read the next paragraph. After he finished the coffee, he discovered that he had no money in his pocket. He walked up to the cashier and said, "I forgot my money." Right, so that's another paragraph. And the person talking in that paragraph is the cashier. Right, so each time a new person starts talking, you need to start a new paragraph. So if we look at part C, at the top is how the paragraph should be structured. Notice right before a new paragraph starts or a new person talks, there's an indent. So all you have to do in the bottom paragraph is right beside the word that should be indented, you're just going to write a P. So if we look at the first one on the bottom paragraph, right, the first paragraph is already indented, so we don't have to change anything. Then if we look, it says, Mr. Smith stopped at a restaurant to get a cup of coffee. He walked up to the cashier and said, "I'll have a cup of that delicious coffee." Right? Then he said, after he finished the coffee, he discovered that he had no money in his pocket. He walked up to the cashier and said, "I forgot my money." So that is all one paragraph. So then right where it says, "You owe us $2 for the coffee," you're going to write a P. That'll indicate that that's a new person talking, and it'll be a new paragraph. So once again, you're going to look at your top paragraph, and anytime there's an indent, that means a new person is talking, and you're going to find that word, the first word where they indented, and you're just going to write a P in the bottom paragraph. So you guys can pause the video now, and then I'll meet you guys in part D. So welcome back, and this will be our final part for today's video. So in part D, we're going to make up sentences that name 3 or 4 things. In each sentence, we can only use the word and one time. So we're going to be writing lists of different items. So we're going to use the picture above to help us writing our sentences. So let's look at sentence number 1. It tells us to make up a sentence that tells the 3 things that the animals ate. And then it tells us how to start our sentence. It tells us to start our sentence this way. The animals ate. Right? So that will be the beginning of our new sentence. The animals ate. So I will write that down here. I'll do the first one for you, and then I'd like you to practice number 2 and 3 on your own. So the animals ate. Right? So we have to name the 3 or 4 things that the animals ate, and then we have to make sure we use the word and only one time. So if you look at the picture, we can see that there are 3 different things that the animals ate. There are oats, barley, and corn. So we're going to write those 3 things. So the animals ate oats, comma, right? The word the comma will replace the word and, barley, and corn. Period. So I'm going to use a different color just to show you where I added my comma and where I have the word and. Right, so the sentence is, the animals ate oats, comma, barley, and then the word and will replace the comma, and corn. So we want to make sure we have the word and right before the last item that we want to name. So guys, then look at sentence number 2 and sentence number 3, and once again, make sure you only write the word and one time. So for sentence number 2, they tell you how the sentence will end, so you have to come up with the beginning of the sentence and name the objects. And same for sentence number 3. Use the words in the bottom to help you, and also look at the picture to help you when writing your sentences. Great job, guys, and I'll see you in our next lesson.